So tell me, dating apps, are they a good thing or are they just absolutely a bad thing you should avoid with everything that's within you? Let's talk about that in today's Thought Raid. Welcome back to Thought Raid, a show where we take on thoughts and find better ways of thinking about them. I'm Brandon, this is Tim, and today we have a special guest, Kyle. Hey! Who's going to be joining us on today's topic on dating apps. Are they a good thing? Are they a bad thing? Should we just avoid them altogether? Or maybe there's some redemption to it? So this is something that I'm very interested in because I think each one of us are on a completely different end of the spectrum related to it, of like for, against, and don't even need it anymore.
Also different life seasons at this table because we have not currently dating, and thank God married.
So that's something we want to talk about today is just like, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? We want to just kind of go into that and look at it from different perspectives. So... Mm-hmm. Tim,
yes.
I love it when you start in these things. Could you begin?
Yeah, absolutely. So this whole topic of dating apps is really interesting to me because the dating app scene is kind of new because I'm a lot older than you guys. And maybe a lot older than most of you guys, but back in my day, we didn't have dating apps. We had dating websites.
Oh, wow.
I'm trying to think about what we had back then.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Dial up.
Yes, we had dial-up.
I remember that.
So things like Tinder and I don't know what else is out there.
Oh,
Christian Mingle and Coffee Meets Bagel.
Do they even have an app for that though? Christian Mingle? I don't know. I remember they had a website. I don't know if they had an app.
That's right. Christians don't use electronic devices.
Yeah, that's it.
If you really know Jesus.
You don't use electronic devices? I don't know about that one.
Well, they're the devil, along with electric guitars and drums and whatever else Baptist people believe. But yeah, there's all sorts of different like dating apps now and websites, and I feel like maybe it was different for me because I didn't really date as much in my 20s, and you guys are. The dating scene is a lot different. Well, actually, it's a lot different for you guys because you're in a young adults community where there's lots of great people. There's lots of great options. And it's not like, okay, I'm going out in the world and I'm hopefully going to find somebody that I find attractive. And hopefully, we're going the same direction in life. And hopefully we believe the same things and like the same things. And we like each other. There's so many things that are stacked up against us when we go into dating. And so, like, if you think about going to a website, if you go to Amazon or whatever, you just go in the search bar and you type in what you want and you filter your results and you just buy the best product, And I feel like dating apps make it so much more simplistic. I feel like you youngins have it so much easier these days. But today we're talking about dating apps in general. So, like, why do you think people use them instead of dating naturally?
Man. I think probably just for the convenience of it. I also think there's like this thing out there that everyone's kind of like, you do you and live your best life, and it kind of presents this case for like taking control of like your own life and trying to like form it yourself. And so obviously you could understand what side of the spectrum I am on my opinion about it, but the original question is why are people using dating apps now, or what was the original question?
Why would somebody want to use a dating app over dating normally? What do you think?
I just think instant gratification probably, and like loneliness. How like social media has like isolated us and made us like apart, and it seems much easier. There's a relinquishment of your strength. Sorry, am I just bashing dating apps?
No, thinking about it, before I actually sat down and thought about this topic, I thought dating apps were okay because my cousin. He lived in New York for a while. He was building a business. you know the shirt that has the picture of a state that has like North Carolina and it says home.
Mm-hmm.
He designed that. That's him.
Wow.
So he was on Shark Tank and stuff. So he was busy doing that and running around trying to make a life for himself. And he found his wife on a dating app, and apparently they're super happy. I've never met her, but apparently they're super happy. They've been together for several years, and I know that she was really busy too.
Right.
And especially going someplace like New York. Now, I've never been to New York, so I can't really say, but it just seems like everybody's always in a rush. Everybody's got someplace to be. Man, when I go to the grocery store, I'm always in a rush, for instance. When I'm trying to get someplace, I actually have to stop and consciously think, okay, well, how are you? Like, who are you? Let's talk. Let's engage in a relationship. And especially if your social circle is already full to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know with us, like back in the day before Kyle came around, we had our own young adults social circle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like when you first enter the room, you evaluate, okay, who's hot? You know, we all do it. We all do it. Who's attractive? Who do I like? Who am I drawn to?
If I think about it, yes, that is vaguely in my head. When I'm like, like it's not an overt thing that like, you know, I'm not personally actively thinking about it overtly, but I am like keeping that in the back of my head of like who is attractive in here because maybe I can move in her direction, you know, kind of thing when I go into that situation. But thinking back, you know, for me, like what brought me to dating apps? Because I'm sitting here thinking like, why would I want to do a dating app? Why did I do a dating app? Because for me, I've done lots of them. Okay, I have done like since the inception of dating apps, I was involved in anything vaguely Christian related. So like there was Christian Mingle, and I was involved in that, and there was eHarmony, and I was involved in that, and there was, you know, later on there's been new things like Hinge and things like Facebook dating app thing too. I've been involved with that.
Mm-hmm.
And
wait, you actually did Hinge?
I've done Hinge, yes.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. The only ones I've usually stayed away from are the ones that are usually for hookup, and I'm not interested in that, so I don't get involved.
So I was really interested in those. I know that's a weird thing to say, especially because I'm not married, but just the concept that you would open up an app and you would just see people that were also looking for a hookup. Like, granted, guys, like I didn't do anything until I was married, you know. But just the idea that that's so accessible. Just thinking about what 20-year-old Tim would have done back in the day before he was a Christian, before like I felt the conviction of that. Mm-hmm. Just like, okay, let me open this app and let me see who's hot and swipe. Oh, okay, so this person wants to hook up and go to a hotel and have sex. Great.
Yeah.
That would have been so easy. Mm. You know, forget the dating, it's just like let's just go have sex, you know? I mean, I think it's fascinating. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's healthy. I think it's fascinating.
Yeah.
And I think it's also like instant gratification, like you were saying.
Well, I think that's why I'm so against it, like getting saved and like doing the dating app thing before being saved. It just feels like there's this like, I know what my heart posture was when I was in that season, and so it was very lonely. It was very needs based. It was very like and I know my own heart now, and I know it's different, but I also know like the opportunity or the ability to sin has not gone away. And so the temptation of having a dating app where I can sit there and just like in my loneliness, like maybe I could do it, but it seems very hard for me to like think about and be like, have an app on my phone where I could like look through women and like one, not lust at them, and two, like, you know, do something with a pure heart. And so when I think about dating apps before I was saved, it was all about like, and dating in general, because like having sex before you're married, like puts this thing like in your brain that like blinds your face, because you could be dating someone and not actually enjoy their company or like being with them, and you don't realize it until you stop, you know, doing the things that you're not designed to do. And so I have this history with dating apps where I'm like, you know, meeting people or like, you know, going on dates, and it just seems so shallow. And I think and like I wanted to be very clear because they invited me to come on here and talk about it. And like, if you found your spouse on a dating app, or if you're using dating apps and you have a heart posture that is pure and good, or whatever your situation is, and it's working for you, please don't let me like discourage you. My hope was like talking about this would be like to stir some people on to like faith and to believing in God, and like trusting him to like bring the right person instead of like maybe taking control on yourself. And so, because my history in the past, like I've done the dating app thing, I've sadly, like, makes me really sad, like done the hookup thing, like I've done that, and it's like it's a zero. Like you walk away, because I also think there's this shame thing that like shrouds dating apps, like like it's hear me out, because I feel a little unrest about that. Hear me out. I'm basically saying, like, I just feel like, okay, here's a scenario. You meet a girl on a dating app, you go on a date, and then all of a sudden you introduce them to your parents, and they ask, how did you meet?
Oh, she swiped left.
Right. And so, like, there's this shroud of, like, and your parents are probably going to be like, or you may feel a certain way, or maybe you don't, but I maybe your heart posture is good and you feel like you were pure in your pursuit of that, but I think there's this way that is right. And so that's my opinion. And, but I have this history also, like this clunky history with dating apps of like feeling rejection, feeling like, being like, oh, she seemed great, like swipe right or whatever. And then it's like, and she never answered. Oh, 40 people never answered. 60 people never answered. Why do you set yourself up for that? Because there's one person out there for you that God has planned for you. So it's like, why would you put yourself through all of this when he loves you and has a plan for your life?
Well, just thinking about my perspective, because I never paid for dating apps, and I never actually engaged with anybody on dating apps. But I guess this was like circa when I was 24. What was that, like 13 years ago? Oh my gosh. 13 years ago, I was 24. So about 13 years ago, MySpace was still around. Yeah. Remember? And then if you guys ever had MySpace, you had your top 6.
Top 8.
Was it top 8?
Yeah.
You had your top 8.
I'm 30. Yeah, top 8. I got you.
So you had your top 8, right? And I just remember what it was like curating my MySpace profile. Like you have all this code on there, so it plays a certain song, and it like when people click on your profile, they see like this background, and it's like you presented.
Yeah.
Right. I remember I forget which dating site it was, but I remember creating an account. And I remember spending tons of time trying to take a good picture for it, right? And so I took a good picture, I put the picture up, and then I spent hours working on my bio. My bio was like 3 sentences long, but I spent hours working on it because I wanted to be presented a certain way. And then I thought, okay, well, how do I come across? Do I look attractive? Do I sound like I've got something to give? And after like 2 or 3 days of working on that, I remember sitting back and I'm like, okay, let's see who validates me. Because I don't think I actually wanted to date anybody from online dating. I think I just wanted the validation of people showing interest personally.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a part.
I've still been sitting here like thinking like what brought me to dating apps in the first place. Because I know there's reasons, and I'm trying to, like, it's one of those things, it's like, you want to figure this out, but your brain's like, no, you don't want to figure that out. I'm like, I need to figure it out, brain, let me figure it out. And I think part of it is a confidence thing that's related to me being on dating apps personally. Because not having confidence that I'll be able to find some woman who has relatively similar interests enough that I don't feel completely alien around her. Like, who out there is attractive and also is okay with video games. Like, every girl that I've known in person never seemed to care much about video games growing up. But there might be some online that do. And so it was a way of security, I think, for one, that drew me to dating apps. And another way of just like, my life has been a constant battle of, am I doing enough? Yeah. Like, that's the question that I've asked myself for years. And so sometimes I wonder, am I doing enough when it, like, is the fact that I'm still single related to the fact that I'm not doing all that I can do to put myself out there, of which I don't know. Like, part of me fully believes and trusts that God can bring me to an event or, bring someone into my life of which that, we can like meet and like, wow, you're a really cool person. And then like just work things together and that I'm not going to miss the moment.
Well, we had a conversation about this recently, remember? We were talking about meeting somebody and about just being yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then you were like, the place that I am myself is my online community on Discord. And I was like, Brandon, how many attractive women who play video games do you find in your community on Discord?
None.
Because I used to be in the same boat. I was like, man, I want to stay in my comfort zone, but I also want to find somebody who's out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
So I think that's why dating apps appealed to me initially.
Yeah. And I no longer, I still have dating apps, but I don't really rely on them as much as I used to. Because it's like I've come to a place of greater confidence going out and being involved in more events. So now I know that's going to increase the odds of finding someone. And now also I've been coming to a place where I recognize it's like really the only thing that would be a must for me when it comes to other than she's on fire for Christ is that, because that is a very important thing.
Number one.
That is number one.
It's like number one.
Yeah.
Like, can we get a hallelujah amen up in the house? Like, can we got more people listening? Can we get a praise the Lord? Hallelujah for all you on fire women out there on the live stream. Maybe you're watching this right now. Maybe you're not saved.
In
If
the
you wanna be
comments.
saved, turn yourself to Jesus. We love Jesus here.
Okay. So,
Sorry, went
But
too
right
far.
under that,
Too far.
right under that though,
We went to gospel, my bad.
It's okay. Well, I feel like I need to give some definition real quick.
well, right under that, before you get to some definition, is that she's okay with me, and part of my hobby is playing games because I do ministry through that.
Yeah.
So
Well, I think that makes sense too, because grace is like, you got the grace of Christ, and I got asked a while back of like someone's like, what do you want most in a spouse? And I'm like, grace, because on the hard times, on the days where like things break down, that's what I'm looking for. Is someone that cares and someone that's like not gonna condemn me if I miss it, because none of us are perfect. So
Yeah.
I think I resonate with that a lot too.
yeah, but you were going to clarify something.
Yeah. So, guys, when we say, because this is a cumulative thought between us, our main, I guess, desire for a mate or somebody to date or whatever is for them to be on fire for God. What we're really saying is we understand that they're pursuing love, right? Because God is love. So for those of you who don't understand the real Christian faith, not just religious Christian faith, it's somebody that understands that they've received grace through Jesus and has a relationship with Jesus where he's teaching them how to love, and they're giving love right back to Jesus. Like when they understand that, they can love us properly, right? Because when we are somebody's idol, or if they're our idol, everything just gets out of whack.
Yeah.
So when we say we want somebody on fire for God, for those of you who don't understand or don't agree with the Christian faith, that's okay. What we're really saying is we want somebody who understands what it means to actually love in a self-sacrificing way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say also for those people, because you just heard me like get real excited. If you watch the testimony video that Tim and I made, like you understand maybe a little bit, but I used to not love Jesus, and so like this is coming from someone that like has lived, like didn't grow up in church, and so you see me laugh, you see me excited about stuff, and it's just because of the freedom and the love and like the knowing of God that he's put in there. And so I hope that didn't come off as condemning. I'm glad you said that, because the last thing I want to do is someone that doesn't know Jesus, because my heart is like, man, I found so much love and purpose and life in the Lord. Last thing I would want to do is to turn someone away just because they're like, maybe don't, because I don't think I would have understood if someone, I'm watching a live stream and someone's like, hallelujah, Jesus, yes, want someone that's on fire for God. It's like, okay, that seems a little bit, but it's like, no, but like what you said is exactly true in that sense. And what I wanted to add to that was like, you talk about in a relationship, I think there's power in like surrendering the relationship to the Lord. Meaning like, if God is love and he is who he says he is, like surrendering that relationship to the Lord means I trust you, Lord, with this, whether it works out or whether it doesn't, come hell or high water, like I'm giving this to you and I trust you with it. And I found that I didn't do that in my last relationship. And the one thing that did was it made me insecure and like almost self-focused, because I was like I was in a place where I was like, am I good enough? Am I not good enough? Is like, does she like me? Does she not like me? Rather than being like, Lord, I trust you at this. This is a gift. And whether it works or whether it doesn't, like, I love you and I'm putting you first. And in that place, I'm actually free to, instead of focusing on myself, am I doing a good job to keep this going? It's like, no, you got it going. I'm freed up to love you. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to clarify that because I've been through that. The old Kyle, like I've been through that as a Christian, like being self-centered and being like in that place of like knowing God, but almost acting like I don't in a relationship, and then it kind of imploding like a drain. So
we've got some stuff coming in from Hell Knight. He says 20 minutes in the morning, so that I think that's his way of saying it's like 12:20 a.m. where he's at. How are you today? Doing good. He says, if God is love, then God isn't in my ranked games. Sad face. Very, very sad face. He plays Overwatch.
That's very funny, actually.
See, good. Thanks for stopping by, Hell Knight.
Yeah, Peyton said something earlier. I think, what is that? I think seeing them in person is better because you get to know their personality than online.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was talking about, because the facade that I was putting there, it's like, okay, so little history into my love life, guys.
Uh-oh.
Well, first of all, I'm married, so you can do it too.
Good job.
Thanks. I used to have this locket I would carry around, and I had all these like ideas of what I wanted in a mate, right? And there were 40 things I'd written down, because back then my mentor said, you know, God loves you, and all, and I was like, cool. I was agnostic. I didn't believe in God. I was like, cool, if God's up there, this is what I want. You know, kind of like a Santa Claus wish list.
Yeah.
Santa, if you're real, this is what I want.
Genie in a bottle.
Pretty much. Yeah. And so everything, man, the way she looked, where she was from, her family, like what her family was like, the things that she liked, all that stuff. And I got it. You know, I got it. And then went through the relationship. It was cool. It was fun. But there was a lot of really core things missing, like love, mutual interest.
Pretty core.
Mutual
investment.
Yeah, like the importance. No, I get that.
Yeah.
It's very core.
But here's the thing, man. It's like I could have gone to a site like Amazon or like Tinder or Christian Mingle or Coffee Meets Bagel, and I could have plugged all that stuff in.
Coffee Meets Bagel?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
It's a new one.
But I could have typed in Caucasian, red hair, green eyes, likes video games. I could have plugged all that stuff in, and it would have matched me with all these great people. But, you know, when I met my wife, it's one of those things where when I first met her, it didn't even register. Like, did not register. I thought she was attractive, but I was like, it's not on my list. It doesn't appear after my search query. Yeah. You know? And so it's like, in my situation, my personal situation, if I had taken to dating apps and if I had been searching for all the things that I wanted, it's like girl after girl after girl would have let me down, right? Because my wife is completely the inverse of what I thought that I wanted. And it's so awesome. Like, we don't see eye to eye on some things, you know, like I love video games. She doesn't love them. She likes Mario and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if I told you this, but Ariane wanted to learn League of Legends. I was like, no, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that.
My heart, though.
Yeah, but the point I'm trying to make is, like, I met her in real life because, as Peyton said, I think meeting them in person is better because you get to know their personality more. And I feel like I didn't really have this experience with online dating because I didn't engage, but the online dating thing or the dating app thing, it seems like there's a lot of back and forth, like tag, almost like if you're trying to sell something on Facebook Marketplace. It just seems really frustrating because it's like, how do you get through the cost of admission without even like having that personal touch of being in real life? And taking that a step further, especially for women on dating apps, it's got to be super creepy because I'm sure there are a lot of really weird guys out there that take advantage of women. Yeah. So that's probably a scary place for them too.
Yeah. Yeah. That is something. I mean, and then there's the inverse of like what the men have to go through too. I mean, like, you know, just the stuff that you're talking about, like destruction of like your confidence and stuff in the process. Like, you know, I found not too very long ago. not too very long ago.
I'll take that out of context.
Yeah. I found someone. We connected over Hinge, and she seemed to hit everything that was important to me. And we're having good conversations and stuff, and then all of a sudden, just poof, just gone. Just never heard from her again. Like we were planning to just meet up and talk about stuff, and then gone.
And if you're watching this, what gives?
What gives?
Come
if
on.
she's a 38-year-old male from Wisconsin.
Oh! Missed that bullet. Ooh.
Yeah. But like when you do actually meet, it's like you're not 6'3", 175 pounds and ripped.
I never put myself up as that
Hey,
though.
5'2" is close to 6'3".
Yeah.
It's like all these unmet expectations and like the catfishing pictures that people take.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute, you don't look anything like the picture. I mean, there's that too.
Yeah.
But in real life, what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's in my case, it's like, it can definitely be. I mean, but it's not obviously just dating apps. Just anytime you put yourself out there, it can be really hard when you get turned down. And so I guess maybe the challenge that dating apps presents is that you're going to be probably turned down on a more rapid basis. So it's just like you get beat up a lot faster, and the recovery time, you don't have as much time depending on how deep you are in it.
Well, it makes me think about how like all these people. We'll take League of Legends, for instance. My mom died in 2015 from breast cancer. To cope, I went home that night and I was just in my room playing League of Legends by myself, and I was winning. And so the person I was winning against in chat said, "I hope your mom dies of cancer." Right? I'm like, there is nobody in real life right now that could punch me in the throat. But that's the thing. It's like there's no consequence for ghosting somebody. There's no consequence for telling somebody that they look fat or they're ugly or they're not tall enough, they're not wealthy enough, they're not prolific enough in their field, which is whatever, and people can be so mean online because there is no touch. Because Brandon, we there was a YouTube video that you showed me a while back about the concept of the wall of awful.
Yes.
And I think with dating apps and with real life conversations, they just have a different wall of awful. We've talked about the online wall of awful, like perceptions and validation and all that stuff. But what do you think is like the wall of awful when it comes to meeting people in real life?
I don't know what that is.
So the wall of awful is a phrase. It was not even technically coined by the woman who talked about it. It was a guy that she interviewed, and maybe he got it from somewhere else too. But she runs a YouTube channel called How to ADHD, so she talks about like methods of like how to make yourself be productive when you're just distracted by 5,000 things. And one of the things that she got from one of the people that she interviewed was this concept called the wall of awful, to describe why is it so hard for people with ADHD to get something done. And it's because it's like people with ADHD have a tendency to make something small very big. And like, I really don't want to do that right now. And it becomes this wall of awful. It's just like, and the wall of awful is a metaphorical thing, and it gets built every time you don't do the thing, every time you fail doing the thing, every time whatever it is doesn't get done, it gets higher and higher. And it's infinite in every direction. So it's like you can scale it, but you can't go around it. Like, it's just there. You got to deal with it.
And you build it brick by brick. And the simile that I'm trying to draw here, the metaphor, is, for instance, if you get stood up for a date, you go through all these concepts in your mind, conflict, right? Really what we're talking about is conflict. Mm-hmm. Like if you get stood up, why did she stand me up? Is it because I'm not attractive? Is it because I came off as weird? Is it because she just needs some cook time and she's not an accountable person? Did she get murdered? Did I go to the wrong place? Did she look up my social media? Did she look me up on Google? Like there's all these things, right? And that adds a layer. And then let's say you go on a date with somebody and they're like, actually, I want to be friends. Well, why do you want to be just friends? Why'd you say yes to this person and no to me? Okay, well, let's add another layer to that wall of awful.
Yeah, and before you know it, by the time you get to the fifth or sixth person, now you're having to do a lot of work to actually go through with, like, even just saying, hey, would you like to go on a date becomes extremely difficult because you have all those past failures haunting you.
Yeah.
And that is your wall of awful that you have to go over or through or something.
Yeah, I know someone who breaks walls.
His name is Jesus.
Easy. Yeah. No, I get what you guys are saying. But at the same time, I think, like, if we let... I'm going to pull a Dan Mohler quote out of my pocket. If we let anything or anyone decide who we are and how we are, and their name's not Jesus, like, we're kind of like letting them be the Lord or deciding factor of our lives instead of who actually is. And, like, I think this applies to the wall of awful in a sense of, like, your identity and where you get your security from. In a sense of, like, because I can let my past failures, but I think in the design of God, in the pure holy design of, like, marriage and union and covenant, it's like, we're sitting here and we're talking about dating apps, but as a Christian, I'm like, and I think the majority of people, I may have seen that somewhere, I don't quote me on it, the majority of people want to get married. And so, like, there's this idea, and, like, okay, divorce is rampant nowadays, but, like, in Christian life, like, if love doesn't seek its own, and, like, I'm supposed to choose to love you every single day, I'm supposed to marry one person. And, like, that means that there's one person out there for me. And so, like, if something didn't work out, and, okay, I've been through heartbreak. I'm not saying that's not a thing, but I am saying that, like, going through that heartbreak further solidifies, too, that, like, that wasn't the right person for me, and one, that there is a right person for me, and if someone shuts me down, like, that's okay. Like I've had so much after going through that, and also just founding my identity in Christ can go through a dating situation, that person be like, I don't want anything to do with you. I also don't really like you, think you're stupid or whatever, and probably come out on the other side and be like, okay, you know, that was me, and they probably shouldn't have said that, but like, if she was a no, because I think I'm just done with like being a person that, like, dates people and then the other person not have a yes to. And so it's like,
What do you mean by that?
If, like, okay, I'm pursuing someone and at some point it's just like they're not interested, it's like, what's the point? Like,
okay,
you know, so, like, and I like to believe in God, like, there's a place for each of us in marriage and the person we're supposed to be with where it is a yes on both sides. And so, like, when something doesn't work out, I think that gives me more confidence seeing the design of it all and being like, that's how it's supposed to be. If there's, like, insecurities or things like I said, you get dumped or things happen, it's like, okay, well, that kind of stunk, but that, like you said to me the other day, you're like, that just puts you one person closer to finding your wife. So at the end of the day, it's like, I could be insecure about that, but, like, the person I'm supposed to marry is probably gonna like me, so like, why am I so tore up about? You know what I mean? And it kind of takes that weight off of, like, oh my gosh, that was the person, and because I think that's why we put so much weight on what they think, and it's like a fear of men sort of thing instead of a fear of God. Because if we, again, going back to the root, if we're rooted and grounded in love, Ephesians is like, then we gotta be connected to the head, Christ, and believe that He's love and He's got a plan for our lives. And so it's like, if that's true, which it is, like, then there's someone out there for us. And not saying, like, everything's gonna be perfect. Probably, you know, someone who's married, like, there's arguments, there's things that happen. You have to choose to love. But I would hope that when you marry someone, you both are, like, excited and, like, want to be with one another. So the shallow, like, rejections, I think, could form a wall of awful. But I've noticed recently, I've been like, yeah, if it didn't work, that's okay. So I don't know if that helped anybody. It was kind of a long rabbit hole, but I felt like it was worth explaining.
No, I think that's a really good point, because I think, especially in my profession, I talk to people about relationships a lot. You know, and there are so many people who just settle, and they settle primarily from what I've seen. And I mean, I'm not a professional as far as, like, relationships are concerned. I mean, I guess I kind of am, because I get paid to talk to people about relationships. I guess I'm a professional, guys. Wow.
Ranked even.
But it just seems like a lot of people just get to a point where they think, okay, well, this is as good as it's going to get. And just thinking about the wall of awful, it's like, okay, well, I'm only willing to break down my wall to this level. This other stuff, I don't want to risk breaking down because the conflict is too painful. So I'm just going to find something that's just comfortable enough, and they settle.
Yeah.
You know, and just thinking about letting people go and letting things fall to the wayside, not put on the perfect facade.
Yeah.
You know, when on our very first date, I remember talking to Ariane, and our first conversation, I was like, hey, I struggle with pornography. I have this history. You know, I had a car repossessed. I was like, I was intentionally trying to push her away and let her see who I really am. And you know, the weird thing, we talked about this the other day, and she was like, that's actually what drew me to you. I was like, great, I don't have to be something that I'm not.
Vulnerability is big. Yeah.
I don't know. You've told that before, but this time it hit me because I did that with the most recent experiences. I did that and I hit them. It was like, here's these things, and the first and the there was another person that just wasn't going to work at all. But the first person that I thought it could, I was like, okay, she's handling it, and then that's when she ghosted me. So that just, it hit me like, that's what, when you found your wife, that drew her to you, being open and vulnerable.
But we were
and
also
honest.
in person.
And you're in person, but just thinking that as a generalized thing in this moment of like who you are didn't just blow them away or whatever. Like they stuck around. I feel like that's an important thing. I don't know. That just hit me, even though I've heard you talk about that before.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thinking about dating apps, if we had met, we being my wife and I had met on a dating app, and I had presented myself the same way, I probably would have had a completely different outcome.
Yeah.
Because there's the inflection of your voice, your mannerisms, the way your body reads, the way you smell. I mean, all sorts of things that are attributed, because there are so many people. I mean, if you guys are coming to us from our various gaming endeavors, whether it's League of Legends, Final Fantasy, Minecraft, UGN, whatever, you guys know that when you meet somebody in real life, it's often much different than when you meet them online.
Yeah.
Right? There's like somebody might be named Deathbane. Talking to you, Deathbane. And you meet them in real life, and my name's Charlie.
Charlie.
Steve, Bob. My name's Tim. My online handle is Stun and Run, because I play a support character. I stun and I get out of there.
No, it's because you're stunning good looks, bro. I was thinking that earlier. You're like, they can't see my face, they don't know, or like they can't hear my voice or what I smell like, or you're stunning good looks.
But that's the thing, it's like when you meet somebody in real life, there's a completely different engagement. And I guess the final point that I want to bring up, if we're even going about points, you guys might have other stuff too, is I want to talk about responsibility and empathy. Because just going back to that guy that told me, hey, I hope your mom dies from cancer. He had no empathy for my real life. There's no way he could have known that my mom had died from cancer 3 hours earlier.
Yeah.
Right? He was just frustrated. Much like all the people using dating apps must be when they ghost somebody. They're probably frustrated with the dating apps too.
Yeah.
And here I am getting my feeling. Well, I mean, I didn't, but hypothetically, here we are getting our feelings hurt because somebody ghosted us, or we have 40 people that didn't respond on Tinder or whatever. But it's like, what do you guys think? And I'm curious what you guys think too. So if you're watching now, let us know. If you're watching in the future, let us know in the comments. What do you think is the difference in responsibility and empathy between dating apps and real life relationships?
The responsibility between dating apps and real life.
Well, our responsibility to the person that we're trying to date.
I'm still not quite sure. I'm trying to make the connection what you're asking, So one more time, repeat that question.
What is our response? Okay, so the difference between dating online and dating in real life. What is the difference when it comes to our personal responsibility in the endeavor and also empathy for the other person?
I feel like it shouldn't change regardless if you're online or if you're in person.
Well, it shouldn't, but it totally does.
But
it totally does.
I think there's this layer of like relinquishing your strength, like when you, and I'm super guilty, like I'm guilty of this. I try and not be, but it's like you want to tell people, hey, if you're going to ask a girl out, call her, don't text her. It's like sort of same thing, same concept, I think. You're talking about like that guy on the internet could just snap that out just real quick, maybe not even think about how it affects the other person because you're not standing in front of them. And so there's like a different level of responsibility, and I think both. Like I think it's higher. It does, like you said, like it shouldn't be, but so for some reason it's like almost like a pariah of today's society because everyone is so focused on like texting and technology. I think like sometimes we can just, and I've gotten myself into trouble in the past, like sending a text out to somebody that had feelings attached to it, like meaning like, so like, you know, being like, hey, this was a conflict, this happened, blah 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 blah, and like because I'm not there, that can get taken. Like I think one of my friends said, if you write a text to someone that's angry or has feelings, assume that they're gonna read it in like the worst light ever, because sometimes you get a text and they don't mean it like that, but you can read it like a thousand different ways. And I don't know that directly applies to dating, like what's your question, but I think it kind of does in a sense of like there's just a different dynamics because the majority of our communication is like nonverbal. And so I learned that in a communication class once. But like a lot of our communication is nonverbal, and so then it's like you're missing out on, I don't know I think it's a staggering number of like 90% or something is like not actually what you're saying. It's like your voice, how you're saying it, and like your body language and stuff is actually the majority of your communication when you're actually with somebody. And so then to do it on a dating app is kind of like, let's take 90% of our communication, throw it out the window. And so, but at the same time, if you receive a hard word, that can still crush you for whatever reason. I know that's true because I've had it happen. Or you take it really harshly or the wrong way. And so I think it's just a less responsibility and less empathy in the dating world. It doesn't, like, it's not supposed to be. Like, our heart should be like, no, I want to be as present as I can be, but I think just due to the communication, that is just harder. So does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Did I hit the mark? I don't know if I got exactly what you're talking about, but
I guess this question kind of relates more to, and it makes me think of a video I did with Chelsea. Remember the relationship between intimacy and commitment? Because recently we've been buying weight equipment from Facebook Marketplace, and there's you know when you search something online, you know you send somebody a message, and there's like, okay, well, they don't know me, I don't know them, I'm just asking for information, I don't have to commit to anything. You know, however, if I said, "Hey, Brandon, do you want to go to lunch with me tomorrow?" That's a query, right? But because our relationship has higher commitment to it, and we're in person, I just think personal relationships, like personal in person, is what I mean. Relationships, they just have more commitment, just because of their nature.
Yeah.
You know, it requires more intimacy, or it requires more of you. But if I were to position the same question to a person in real life, I have more at stake, it feels like. Mm-hmm. You know, even if I said, "Hey, Brandon, I see that you're selling a leg press. Would you do $300? You know? And if you said, if we were in person and you said, "Actually, no, I want $400 for it," I can't just like leave the conversation there and not respond anymore.
You can't just literally ghost me.
Yeah, I can't just.
I mean, you could, but it would be very awkward.
Just like leave you hanging, you know?
Just like, bye.
There's like a social understanding that we're going to see this through to completion. But I don't know, I feel like that's a big thing when it comes to dating.
Imagine, though, if you will, like being in a literal conversation with someone face to face, and you say something they don't like, and instead of disagreeing, they just get up and they leave. I'm like, what is happening? That's what we do on dating apps, though, sometimes, and it sucks. Mm-hmm. I don't like receiving that. Yeah. But at the same time, you know, I understand it, though, because it's like it's not like I'm not guilty of those things. Sometimes I want to desperately get away because, like, if in the terms of fight or flight, I'm more side with flight than I do fight. I just want to just shrink and, you know, not deal with it right now or disappear. But but it's just I feel like we should be responsible just as we are in person as we are online, for it to actually the whole thing to function properly in general. But we live in a broken world. I don't know. Just thinking about all this, it's just like we have another person that came on, legendary anime fan. He says, "Real live is the safe pick. Online dating is dangerous and extremely dangerous. Real life is simple and safe, or save," he said. Or she, I'm not sure. But either way, but yeah, I mean, like, I know, I kind of more so stand on in person because, yes, there is a lot of risk that goes into, asking someone out that you're interested in. And the risk of, like, I don't know, I can't look at some woman and see beside her, this is what she likes, this is her, whatever things that she may list on her dating app profile. I can't see that.
You know how weird it would be if you went up. So Brandon, we're gonna role play real quick.
Okay.
You get to be the woman.
Oh boy.
Can I get up?
Actually, I'll be the woman. So ask me out.
Okay.
Still want to Like, can you imagine? I'm actually in the middle of this date.
Tim, would you go on a date with me?
Scene. And that's where it ends. It's just like, that's it.
Oh god.
I felt that.
Yeah.
Just imagine, man.
Yeah.
Like the person goes about their life, and they heard you.
Yeah.
It's like, hey Kyle, could you get me some water? And you just like stare at me as you walk away.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
But that's what I was saying. There's like a relinquishment of our strength, and especially like as a man, I think like sometimes when we do that, it forms something in us that's not good too. So, because it's easy to just be like, I'm just not going to answer that. And again, I'm guilty of that. Mm-hmm. But I think being guilty of that, and also going through the dating app thing, and like going through hard texting stuff, I learned it because I made a decision where I was like, I'm going to text this person, or I made this decision, I'm going to, go on an online date with this person. And so like I went down that path, and then it's like, all I was just saying is like making those mistakes, like I'm not perfect for sure. But through those like steps, it was like, I learned a lot. I was like, oh, like when I just text someone something like my feelings or something like that, it can be damaging, or it can just be shallow, or if I just don't text them back, it's exactly like I never thought about that. Like you said this, like, can you imagine standing there like staring at someone from the door, just be like, like that's essentially what we're doing when we don't text someone back.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
or like even worse, man, not giving somebody a reason why. So for instance, if somebody, I don't know, I'm just hypothetically saying,
yeah.
if somebody messages you on a dating app and you're like, ooh, no, I don't want this, right?
Yeah.
It's so easy to just not.
Yeah.
But if somebody comes up and says, hey, do you want to go out on a date with me? They risked doing that in person, right? And now you have this conflict that you have to resolve because that person has value. But online, it's just, zeros and ones.
Yeah.
But I think that's the difference between people who understand love, which is what we were talking about.
Yeah.
And, understanding also maturity, because when you understand maturity and that people have value, and when you actually understand love, you understand that just because it feels bad doesn't mean you don't have to do it. There's relational things that feel bad that you have to do because the other person is worth it. It's like, I'm not into this person, they're asking me out, but I can't ignore them, because how would I like it if somebody ignored me?
Right.
Like, what do I need to do to reconcile this?
Yeah.
Right. But that's where it comes to having to understand boundaries and communicating them and going through the conflict so the person understands, hey, I'm valuable. I'm valuable enough for you to tell me no and just be okay with that. I'm valuable enough for you to have a conversation with me instead of just blowing me off. Right. And I really feel like, and this is my caboose. Well, not my caboose, but this is me wrapping up my part of it anyways. I really feel like that's my issue with dating apps. It just removes that level of empathy and ability to love people, because it makes it too easy to not love people the right way, especially when it's not working out or it's not going to work out. It makes it easy for us to be lazy.
There's a degree of accountability and growth that comes when you pursue people apart from dating apps. It's scary. It's risky. They could say no. They could say you're ugly. They could say get away from me. Or they can also say nothing at all.
Or they can talk about you with their friends.
Or they can talk about
Can
you
you
with their
believe
friends.
this person asked me out? Ooh.
Yeah, that is very possible. But there's just a level of accountability, love, and growth that comes from doing that you can't necessarily get the same way online. I don't think I've gotten anything other than heartaches to get over from dating apps, personally. I have definitely, like, I've had more positive experiences in breakups or being rejected by going to a person in person and saying, hey, would you like to go on a date with me? I've had better experiences with that than I have net total of doing things online. Personally, up to this point. And I know the people that have had success in that. But for me personally, I just... And I think that's important for me because of who I am too. I don't need to be behind a dating app to be confident. I can be confident in person with someone I'm interested in, and take the full brunt of whatever their answer is and be okay with it. And I think I can learn a lot better that way than I can online, personally.
Yeah. Can I add some?
Yes, of course. You are the star of the show today.
Oh, man. Not me, him. And I think that's actually what I was going to kind of finish with. I think, like, everything for me goes back to Jesus. Because that's who I'm in love with. That's my life. But I wanted, because when you asked me to do this, I actually was thinking about, like, the flip side. I was like, okay, so, like, what would it look like for Kyle, who's saved, who, like, loves the Lord with all his heart, all his mind, all his strength, to do a dating app, which here for the record, I haven't, and I'm not bashing people that have. My question and my thought was, like, what is your heart posture? I think that's what I started with. I don't think I uncapped what I was talking about. And I want to uncap it, and I want to talk just a little bit more. I know we're probably running out of time. But, like, because I could see, like, you're in relationship and fellowship with God. At least this is my case, right? And you're talking to God, and God's like, hey, get this dating app. And it's like, and you're like, have, like, this relationship and this pureness, and you're like, I'm not going to lust at the women. I'm not going to kind of get gross with anything. I'm going to be very direct. And, like, I do think there's a level of communication that's lost, but I could see that work. Like, I could see it work. I could see how it could work. You know, if the Lord was like, hey, this is a thing, and then there's a person in, like, Tennessee that you've never met, and, like, you guys need to meet. And it's like you guys somehow meet. And, like, I could see that, and you going for that, and you go, and the Lord's like, hey, do this, and you do it, and then you meet someone. But that's always been my conviction since I've been saved. I'm like, I don't want to take... Like, you look at the stories of the Bible and, like, the beauty of relationships in the Bible and, like, how God's always, like, intertwined in the story. Like, they take Adam and Eve, like Adam, he puts Adam to sleep, and, like Eve is the crown of creation. Everything in creation gets more beautiful, and then Eve's like the most beautiful thing. And that's why the enemy's so against you women sometimes, is because, like, he hates, like, the beauty that women actually, like, we're made in the image of God, right? So women are actually that, like, the beauty portion of God. Like, they're the most, like, beautiful thing that God ever created. So, like, but, like, Adam falls asleep and God takes a rib out and, like, can you imagine that? Like, and so for me, I'm like waking up, and he sings a song. He's, like, so pumped. He's like, yes, God. Like, thank you so much for Eve. Like, this is hype. Like, I love this. You know? Like, that's a paraphrase. That's not what it says. Read it. It's in Genesis. But, like, I have this conviction in my life that I'm like, and I think Lauren Cunningham said, if you don't surrender your marriage to the Lord, even before you're saved, every room you walk into, you're going to be looking for, is she in here? And I don't think that's a bad thing, but sometimes that can keep you from the mission and why we're alive. And so I think, again, like, there's this like, God's so cool. He's so creative. He's got a plan for your life and for me. I'm like, I don't want to take that. Like, if he tells me to get a dating app, but I'm like, that just seems like I'm controlling God in the relationship. Like, there's so many, like, is it Jacob and Rachel? I should have looked this up. There's a bunch in the Old Testament, and he meets her, and he's so excited. And I think, like, just allowing that space for God to actually move and to bring you someone, you're like, Kyle, not everything's a fairy tale. Not everything's going to work out perfectly. It's like, God is love. And, like, if I believe God's love, then I don't want to take that real part of the relationship from him, because he's got something amazing planned. It may not be all fireworks, it may not be this or that, but whatever it is, I want to be part of it. And I want to be front seat to whatever he's going to do, because it's going to be crazy, because that's who he is. He's extravagant, he's loving. I got goosebumps all over my arm, and he loves you. And, like, I think they're gone now.
I'm looking. I'm like, that's actually goosebumps.
I felt something. So maybe you guys didn't say. I don't know. Anyways, they were there. It was like, as soon as I said that, like. But I know that's a tangent, but that's my conviction, and I think to me it's been a beautiful way to live. And it's almost like, for me, like, when I take my eyes off of, like, lusting or wanting, I think the desire for a relationship's good. I think putting that desire above God is a challenge sometimes. And I think that, like, when that actually comes on the altar and you put God first, sometimes you're not even thinking about a relationship. And I even hear people that aren't Christians, like, I think my dad would tell me, he's like, Kyle, when you least expect it, that's when something's going to happen. I've heard people say that a lot. And so I don't want to take that as the gospel, but that kind of puts in my mind, like, okay, like, sometimes I think if I'm free of, like, needing this and trying to hold it over God, God knows my heart and God knows where I'm sitting. And so I encourage anyone that's listening, like, surrender that thing to God, trust him, and then, like, you're actually free. So when someone comes along that you, like, actually like, you're freed up in a place that you can actually love them because you don't need them. It's like Adam in the garden was, like, made in the image of love, got cut off from love, and became in need of love. So, like, everyone's walking around with that problem unless they fill their heart with Jesus and put him first. And so, like, like, there's this place that my conviction is, like, that has to be number one. And even in the relationship, it needs to be number one. Because if it's not number one, I'm going to get self-centered, I'm going to get self-focused and self-conscious. And I'm not going to be living into my true identity and why I'm created. And so the whole dating app thing, I think it just gets, to me, it's like, I knew they asked me to come and talk about it, but it's like, it gets, like, in left field somewhere for me. It's like, people talk about it, I'm like, yeah, I had a lot of problems and this stuff is kind of gross, but, like, I don't want to bash the people that use it, because I could see, again, you could have a pure heart and a good intention with the dating app and not be out of a lonely or something.
Yeah.
So, but I hope that makes sense. I know I rambled for a bit, but it's beautiful. And I think, like, even in my last relationship, which didn't work out, but it was like, the Lord had me ask, like, 2 girls out. Like, it was just so clear. It was like, I just felt this rising of my spirit, like, the Holy Spirit rose up in me, and I just felt like I should ask this person out. And then it was like, and they're like, yeah, I have a boyfriend or this or that. And I asked God, I'm like, God, why do you do this? And he's like, because I can. And explaining that is like, because I wanted to show you that I can. So when it's a person that you're actually supposed to, that she's going to say yes, you know that I can do this. Like, you know that I can lead you. You know that I can show that you know that I'm for you. You know I'll send things that are 1 in a million shot in front of your face so that you trust me. And that's what we're all created for in the first place. And so, like, but everyone's so lonely, like, we put this relationship thing above God again, and we can't, like, you can do that, and it seems like it doesn't make sense, because, like, well, I want that. It's like, yeah, I still want that, but I don't put that above God, and I actually surrender it to him, and I trust him in it, and I'm, like, free because of that. I don't know if that makes sense. I've said it a couple times.
Yeah.
But
I think it makes total
okay.
sense. Like, there's a book called Wild at Heart, guys. And when I recommend a book, I take it with a word of caution. You know, you got to figure out what you want to take from it, what you want to leave from it. So, yeah, there's parts of that book that I don't agree with. But one part that's kind of interesting, it talks about the desires of every man's heart.
Yeah.
And it speaks to me because it's like little Tim that was always watching Disney movies and playing video games and stuff. It's like, okay, 3 things. Every man wants: a dragon to slay, a quest to go on, and a damsel to save. And it says for women that every woman, and this is the subjective part, every woman wants a knight in shining armor, a quest to be a part of, and something to nurture. I think that's true to some extent, you know, and, you know, women have their own dragons they want to slay and stuff too. So it's not like a hard and fast rule. But the reason I bring that out, guys, is because when you make somebody your quest,
Yes.
and they know that,
That was the lesson I learned, yes.
there's a level of desperation that's accompanied by that.
Yikes.
And they can feel it.
Yeah.
And even if initially they're like, oh, this is great, this person is all for me, their eyes are on me. Yeah. What do you want? Oh, how can I? My life is for you.
Come on.
Like that sign or that part in Jerry Maguire when they were doing the sign language, where he was like, and he was basically communicating, "You complete me," and they were like, "Oh, that's so awesome." I don't want my wife to complete me.
No.
I don't want to complete her.
Yeah.
Man, if my job in her life is to complete her, I give up because I'm never going to.
You're not gonna.
But here's the thing, guys. I tell people this so frequently. I really believe that if you have your eyes focused on going somewhere and doing something of significance with your life, that person's going to identify themselves not because they're the direction, or not where you're going, but they're going to be along the path that you're going, right? And that's so cool because it already identifies you have something in common. It already identifies that you're in the same life season. It already identifies that you have the same levels of accountability, the same level of gusto, the same level of energy. It just falls into place.
Yeah.
And when you take your foot off the gas, you know, and give Jesus the wheel, being cliche, it's like, okay, he knows much better than we do.
Mm-hmm.
And when those people come into your life, it's not because you've striven to make it happen, because anything you strive to make happen, you have to manufacture and you have to maintain what you've manufactured. But anybody that just comes in your life just through happenstance, through righteous serendipity.
Yeah.
That's what maintains.
Because what God brought together, let not man separate. If man's bringing it together, I don't know that I want to be part of it.
Yeah.
But in that book, what made me think of, he brings up this question. I think it's worth noting.
I'm talking about Wild at Heart.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I read that book, and that was one of the things I was like, ooh, I probably did that. But it's like, every man has a question that like the enemy will attack, but it's like that they have to answer in their own heart. And it's like, am I good enough? Do I measure up? Do I have what it takes?
Mm-hmm.
And so like, I feel like every man has that, whether we want to admit it or not. Maybe you're listening, you haven't even thought of that, but I think that's where insecurity comes from. And so like, but the problem is exactly what you said, is when you take your question, I think you said like when you bring your affirmation to them, it causes desperation. In other words, like when you take that question of life, am I good enough? Do I have what it takes, to the woman, and you say, hey, can you validate me in this? Ooh, you're in dangerous places there, because only like we were created to worship. Like that's how we are all designed. And so like worship just means to ascribe worth to. So when I worship God, I ascribe worth, I praise him because he's actually flipping amazing. And so like, but if I take that same idea and you're like, Kyle, don't worship my girlfriend or whatever. It's like, are you putting all your worth in your being and you're getting your affirmation from them? You're essentially making them like, that's kind of what it is, and it's scary. But the problem with that is it leaves you insecure, and it only leaves you as good as they're affirming you, and it only leaves you as good as like someone else says you are, or how it's going, or like, and it turns you inward and makes you like bring that question to them. And if they don't fulfill that question good enough, which they can't because they weren't designed to, like Tim said, like we weren't designed to, like we're designed to love one another. We weren't designed to completely fill the heart needs and to satisfy our own hearts. Jesus was.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's how it was in the garden. So that's the whole thing. And And so I kind of end it there, but I feel like it's adding to what you're saying in a different light. It's exactly what you said, but maybe explaining it a little deeper. And I think that's a dangerous place. I've definitely been there. And to say, like, it's kind of a lonely, scary, I feel like that's where your heart gets broken. That's where, like, not to say your heart won't get broken, but it's like, that's because you're putting all your marbles in their bag instead of, like, in God's bag and, like, in your own. And meaning, like, you're getting your affirmation from them. And the only healthy place to do that is from God. And because He's created you. Like, if I created this jar, like, this jar has a purpose. And so, like, God's created each one of us. And this jar can say, I'm a giraffe. It doesn't make it any more, like, less jar-like. So if I'm created for the image of God, and God's created me to be fulfilled in Him, to worship Him and have communion with Him, then, like, that's where I need to be. And I tell people this all the time. That's the only place, as someone who didn't grow up in the church, someone who was, like, blinded by lust, as someone who was in a bad relationship, that's the only place that I find you can actually have, like, healthy relationship. Otherwise, I mean, maybe, like, if you found a way to do it, that's awesome. But I feel like you're always gonna need that person. You're always gonna be looking for affirmation from them, or you're just gonna distance yourself from them and just not have I don't actually, rather than, or get self-centered, rather than getting your worth from God and then being like, because you love me, because I'm solid in you, because, like, I'm created to love and I'm beautiful and fearfully and wonderfully made, and you have a person for me, then I'm freed up to ask them how they're doing, find out stuff about them, care about them and serve them and love them and affirm them in a healthy way. Not that they need it, but, like, to encourage them onto their purpose and why they're alive. I know I really went on a tangent there, but it's good. It's just healthy and good. And I never saw it when I wasn't saved. And so, yeah. And just the serendipity of the process of dating. I think it just excites me because, yeah, it's beautiful.
It's fun.
It's fun.
Yep.
It gets less of, like, I need this and I'm desperate. And it's like, no, God's got a plan. This can be awesome. Like, let's go. Like, what do we have to be afraid of? Like, let's kick fear out of the door. He doesn't belong here anyways.
Yes.
And in the relationship, that's so healthy to have that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
Security in Christ.
anyways.
Yep. Well, it's been good.
Oh.
It has been very good. I've enjoyed this.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Yes.
Yeah, no problem.
I still
It's
kind of
fun.
want you to close out and
I'm not gonna.
He's gonna close out in song. Recorded.
Yeah.
just recorded song. Darn.
I could do the country version.
Oh, no. That's almost as bad as the mustache.
I wanna put it out there.
Man, okay, so Tim spent 3 hours yesterday trying to convince me to shave this thing, and it is wonderful, so...
So, thumbs down this video.
No.
If you like his mustache, if you want him to shave it, thumbs up.
Wow. Don't thumbs us down to oblivion. Because people probably want to keep it.
Maybe thumbs up
Keep it.
if you don't like the mustache. I don't know.
Yeah.
Thumbs up if you like it, thumbs down if you don't. Because we're going to go to the top here.
Anyway.
Team Kyle.
Anyways, but yeah, this guy is the voice behind our outro song, so yeah, put a voice to that. Woo! I'm excited. Anyways, so if you really enjoyed this stream, I want you guys to, I guess, thumbs up if you like his mustache and thumbs down if you don't. I would do something differently. And leave a comment about that too. Also, if there's anything that you want to say about dating apps, what are your thoughts on dating apps in particular? Let us know that in the comments. We'd love to read that and just kind of respond to it as we can. So we definitely would love that. And if you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification because that's how you're going to know when we're going to go live again. And we want you to be on the next stream with us so we can
Which will
chat
not
with
be
you.
Monday.
Which will not be Monday.
It's my birthday.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right.
Happy
Birthday to you.
So, springing this news on you. I'm not doing thoughtraid Monday.
Very spring. Wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, we broadcast every Monday, Friday, Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will not be broadcasting this Monday, but Friday of next week we shall.
Yes, so we'll definitely want you to be there this Friday at 7 p.m. We'll be going over our next topic. We're looking forward to seeing you there, guys. Thank you guys for watching.
Wish Tim happy birthday.
Yes.
Where I've been, he says I see a potential. I see a potential in my eyes. I see a potential. I never lost sight of the reason why you're alive. You're alive. You're alive. We sing Jesus, you're alive.